Dylan Walsh, Stepfather. I love doing that movie. Usually I play such good guys, and it was a chance to have him good on the outside, but something very different inside. And my favorite part was the end when I'm in a whole new disguise, and Jessalyn Gilsig comes in, and we were basically setting up the next movie, which unfortunately never happened. But I love the movie. I love that people are still seeing it. It turns up, here and there. Anyway, cheers, and just one little bit of advice. Don't go out there. Don't go out there.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. I really appreciate all support. Excuse me. Before we get into tonight's film review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on our website. Brian's done a fantastic job with the website. We've got all of our episodes and interviews if you want to go back and listen. Like we've said in the past, we've done over 50 interviews, I believe. Definitely over 50. It's a lot easier to find them in the interviews tab on the website, so you don't have to scroll through 200 plus episodes to find them. We also have our store. We have some new shirts and new merch up, and we also have Shan's Etsy page attached as well. Her tumblers are selling like hotcakes. Her tumblers are awesome. I've been using mine at work. It keeps my drinks super cold, which is great in this super hot weather we got right now. And we also have like our blog with some think pieces on it, so definitely check those out as well. And the last thing I'm going to shout out on our website is our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow us, like us, subscribe us, all that good stuff. We really love interacting with our fans. We love meeting new people. We love reading your comments and questions. I mean, we just did a mailbag episode a couple weeks ago. Had tons of questions from all our fans. That was awesome. And I'm going to shout out our Patreon as well. We call it Blood Donors. We have the traditional monthly reoccurring kind. And we fully acknowledge that times are super tough right now. The economy stinks. Gas, food, everything's expensive. We truly appreciate from the bottom of our hearts any financial contributions. It takes a big burden off of us. And just be assured that all of the money goes directly back into the podcast with things we need to produce it. It does not go into our pockets. And we also have a one-time donation. Let's say you're a big fan of a movie and you want us to review it. We have that option available as well. All right, tonight is my pick. I chose Reboot Remake Month just because I wanted to do this movie, honestly. It was I felt kind of bad just because, like Mike had mentioned with his 2000s pick, this movie was this theme was kind of limiting on our movie choices, so I did feel kind of bad about that. But as much as I get bullied, I told my co-host to get over it. But and just to date this podcast, this past weekend was Father's Day. So I asked Brother Mike if me and him could switch just because I felt like the Stepfather would be a good choice, the weekend after Father's Day. So I chose 2009's The Stepfather. It's the year I graduated. I can't really remember the first time I watched this movie. I'm sure it had to be back in the day. We used to have this machine inside of grocery stores called a Red Box. And I'm sure I rented it and just watched it. And I have no idea why, but I still like this movie a lot to this day. I'm probably going to get roasted for my rating at the end of it, but oh well, I'm used to it. I just really enjoy this movie. I don't know why. I just have fun with it. I like the cast. Back when I was in high school, Nip Tuck was kind of like that show that kids were forbidden to watch. Like you'd get in trouble if you got caught watching it. I know I would.
Great show, Nip Tuck. Really enjoyed that. FX baby.
And Penn Badgley, I'm a big fan of the show. I've grown to appreciate the movie more with him and just how much his career's taken off. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the movie. I do have problems with it, but I'll touch on that whenever I get to my rating at the end. Brian, you want to go next with your thoughts?
Sure. So I'd actually never seen this or the 87 original until this week. Just one of those franchises that slipped through the cracks, I guess. Now, I will say the original really impressed me. I like that a lot more than I expected I would. So that coupled with the fact that I also was a big Nip Tuck fan back in the day. So seeing Dylan Walsh in the lead, friend of the show, Dylan Walsh, by the way, I had high expectations for this movie. So all in all, I think this one is definitely better overall. Easier rewatchability factor for sure. But there are a ton I think that really hurts it too. Most notably, I think being PG-13 hurts it a lot in my eyes. Uh, but Walsh does a great job, but probably pretty on par with Terry O'Quinn's original, who was actually offered a cameo in this one too, but apparently turned it down. By the way, but both were really good, I think, in that role. The cast overall is much better in this one. Director Nelson McCormick and writer J.S. Cardone, who, by the way, also did Dustin's next pick, also a PG-13 remake a year prior to this. But I do think that they did a great job of updating and modernizing the story, which I'll get more into later. But overall, I would say I liked it. I'm ready to get in, break this down one step at a time.
I quit. I fucking quit right here on this show. Stepfather, this is what it did. This is what this has done to me. Okay, I'm just kidding. Hey, I'll be honest. I've seen this movie one other time before you picked it, and it was on a date my senior year, the fall of my senior year. So it would have been 2009, like you said. But it would have been, I graduated a year later than you, but this was out in the theater around that time, and I went on a date. So I'll be honest. I didn't remember a damn thing about this movie because I was on a date and we weren't watching the fucking movie. So that's what I remember about this movie. But I remember Penn Badgley being in it, and like you, Nico, and Brian as well. I'm a big fan of the show You, and so it was really interesting to see him play the opposite of his character here. Like he's kind of going against what Joe Goldberg really is. So it's very funny to see that in hindsight, because the stepfather character is basically Joe Goldberg in a way. So I thought that was a really interesting concept. But I've seen the 87 original once. It's not my favorite thing of all time. It's not bad. It's just I didn't rewatch it for this. It didn't click with me, and I didn't necessarily feel that it was necessary. But I really like Dylan Walsh here. I think he's good. I like Amber Heard here, and I know she's controversial, and no one had brought her up yet, so I feel like it was my turn. Given my reputation on this podcast, I felt like it was on my shoulders to bring up Miss Heard, and I think she's pretty good here, man. She definitely plays her role well. All in all, I think it's a fun little movie. Like you said, Brian, very hurt by the PG-13 rating. I think this movie had a chance to have some really cool kills, some really cool visuals and shots that we just don't get. There's a couple kills by David that I think, if done with an R rating, would have been really excellent and almost iconic. Right. Because I like the concept of the film. I really do. I think it's a little bit of a different take on a quote unquote slasher. It's not a masked guy with a machete or a knife. It's your guy next door who tricks you. And I like that idea. I like that concept, but neutered kills for sure. Not a fan of that. But all in all, I think it's a fun watch. That's something that I took in on this viewing was, man, this movie's fun. Like, it's not perfect. There's some mistakes. There's some leaps in logic that I wouldn't make, which I'm going to get into. Susan, anyway, the character that Susan Harding plays, which, by the way, she does perfectly, but the decisions that she makes along the way absolutely blow my mind. She's one of the dumbest horror movie characters I've ever seen. But anyway, like the film, I'm excited to talk about it. And I'm glad you picked it because it got me to go back and rewatch it, because I got to be honest, I don't know if I ever would have rewatched it without doing this show.
Yeah. So like I told you guys, I hadn't watched this movie when it came out, because I remember when it came out, and I just remember everyone that I knew that had seen it just was like, yeah, that movie's pretty bad. So I just didn't watch it. Now, that being said, I didn't watch the original either until recently. And it's worse than this one, I'll tell you that much. The acting is pretty bad. Now, it's not a terrible movie like you said, Mike. It's just not my favorite thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It ages kind of poorly, in my opinion. Just slow.
Yeah. And, you mentioned her. So, given my reputation for telling girls to call me sometime, Amber Heard, call me sometime. Now, who would have thought, though,
You son of a bitch! You son of a bitch!
who would have
No.
thought Amber Heard playing an unsupportive significant other? Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Right.
But
right.
Arg.
also, it's funny. I think that you mentioned Joe Goldberg. I think that this is Joe Goldberg's. This is the same universe. This is his origin story. He picked up these
I'm
bad.
down with it.
He picked up these bad habits
Yes.
because if you look like the looks that he was giving David, it's like, holy shit, that's Joe Goldberg. Like the looks he was giving him early in the movie, I see that, and it's not a bad movie. I will say that when you watch the original and then watch this one, there's striking similarities, which I can appreciate. However, did it do enough new stuff? Did it bring enough new stuff or improvements to the table to warrant a remake? That's where I struggle with, because I don't think that this movie is so much better and so different that it's like, oh, I'm glad they remade this one. That's kind of where I stand with it, and I'll get to that in the scene by scene. But overall, I mean, I don't hate the movie. I probably wouldn't seek it out. And you mentioned, Brian, my next pick, which is made by the same people. Spoiler for, I don't know if I'm next week or the week after, but spoiler, my next pick is Prom Night, and it's kind of the same thing. Like upon a rewatch, it's like, oh man, this movie's not actually that good. So maybe it's
But that movie has Brittany Snow, and this one doesn't. That's all I'm going to say.
That's true. So it's also a coincidence that Amber Heard's significant other, is a swimmer, because that's quite the aqua man. Go ahead.
Oh, we're going back to puns. All right.
Why not?
So this may make me unpopular, but since you're talking about Amber Heard, she is literally in her underwear or bikini the entire time. And I mean, to me, it's super gratuitous. And being PG-13, I was like, come on. Like it's like McCormick and Cordone were trying to have their cake and eat it too.
They definitely were.
And I didn't like the way that it came across as all. So again, it may make me unpopular, but that's just my opinion.
Well, portraying a high schooler, even though she wasn't, that kind of gets a little funky, which we've talked about on this show. And also, it's like they felt like they had to make up for the lack of gore, the lack of blood, or whatever, which I don't think was necessary either. So I tend to agree with you, Brian.
No, I'm with you, Brian. And I remember getting blasted for saying about that in Rob Zombie's Halloween, but I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, well, that was
That's
I wasn't
gratuitous.
going to bring it up.
one was rated R and is allowed to just pretty much do whatever they want. And this one's rated PG-13, where the target audience is junior and seniors in high school.
Well, and that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like if it was rated R and she was naked the whole time, all right, whatever. It's rated R. But it's PG-13, and to me, it was like just shoehorned in there to try to up the sex factor that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So
But I just wanted to touch on one thing that Brian and Dustin said as well. I had not seen the original Stepfather until this week as well. I wanted to at least do my due diligence and say I've seen both of them, and I got to disagree with Dustin completely. I thought the original Stepfather, outside of O'Quinn, was pretty awful. Honestly, it was kind of tough to get.
That's
through.
just because the mom's acting was so damn bad. Oh my god,
I liked it. I thought it was all right.
I
mean, not her acting, but I meant the whole
I didn't
movie.
think
I thought it was pretty good.
I didn't think the daughter was a good actress either. Respectful, I thought Terry O'Quinn was literally the only redeeming factor of the movie.
Well, while we're here, because I doubt that we'll ever review the original. What the fuck were they doing, man? They had a shower scene and showed a nude girl who's allegedly 16. Now I get it; she's 23 at the time they were filming that movie, but that was a nude girl that we saw, and they were portraying her as a 16-year-old. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Oh, bro, the 80s were the Wild Wild West, man.
Well, I know.
All right. Any more opening thoughts before we get into the scene by scene?
Enough opening thoughts.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's move on. All right. The film starts with a young man delivering newspapers and seeing the Bennett families have canceled their subscription. We see opening credits roll and a man shaving and showering. He puts in colored contacts and we see pictures of the family. He grabs his luggage and turns on Christmas tunes, and he hangs up the phone and makes himself some toast and coffee. We now see the son dead at the kitchen table. The mother is dead on the ottoman and other dead children on the living room floor. We see bloody knives and hammers in the sink. He sets the alarm and leaves as we get an overhead shot of the carnage. He drives away. Salt Lake City Police Department. The cops are discussing the crime scene and they bring up the ex-husband, who they rule out seeing how visibly hurt he was upon seeing his dead children. They bring up the stepfather, Grady Edwards. They have nothing on him. They think he may have done this before, killing another family. He paid his rent in cash and bought his vehicle in cash. No background check required. David is in Oregon now grocery shopping, and he tells a young man, life is about a woman getting to pick the cookie. It's a woman's world, and we're just guests here. He tells Susan he lost his wife and daughter in a drunk driver's accident. She tells him where the peanut butter is, and I wrote, Mama is infatuated with him. They make eye contact again at checkout, and she now invites him to pizza, saying she's recently divorced. He says he's not usually this easy, and now introduces himself. 6 months later, Kelly and Michael get to his house. He can't believe his mom didn't come to the airport. He asks Kelly about the new stepfather. They walk out back as they discuss military school, and, surprise, Michael hugs his friends and family, and David walks up saying, he looks like a man. He was expecting a boy, as they shake hands. Festivities commence, and Susan asks Jackie if she's crazy getting engaged so quick. David proposes a toast to everyone, saying, Michael completed the family. Susan tells David Jackie pulled some strings for them, getting him a job selling real estate and getting him off the road. David asks Michael to meet him in 4 minutes in the basement. Michael goes into the basement and sees all the locks on the cupboards. David says he's just a wannabe carpenter. He pulls out some tequila and proposes a real toast and wants them to be a real family. We're going to put this family back together, father and son. Stepfather and son, Michael clarifies. David brings up Michael being a swimmer, and he says he was a swimmer at the University of Oregon. David gives Michael another shot. Michael walks Kelly to her car, and Jackie tells Michael she's glad he's home. Michael and Kelly see David staring awkwardly as they kiss goodnight. Susan goes into Michael's room saying that was a lot for one day, huh? They now discuss him getting along with David. Michael says he's tired, and I wrote he's just not trying to have this conversation already. Susan says maybe he should spend his senior year at military school. David and Susan start getting intimate, and Michael immediately puts the headphones on. We see David talking to a swim coach, and then he makes it home. He gives Susan flowers and tosses Michael a key to a locker at his old high school. He gets to go back to the swim team for the summer. There's no guarantee he can come back in the fall, but they'll work on that later. Michael shakes his hand thanking him, and Michael and Kelly talk, and Michael smiles. Things seem to be coming together. All right, Brian, that's the opening set of scenes. Go ahead, brother.
Look, I got to say this because it's so stupid that I cared about this so much. But when I watched the original and the paper boy was riding down the street in the open on his bike, did any of you guys ever play that old? I think I had it on regular and Super NES, but that game called Paperboy, like that opening reminded me of it so much that I said, okay, the new one better have the fucking Paperboy in it. And hey, it was in a car, but by God, they had it. So bravo to McCormick and Cardone for the really nailing the stuff that matters, like a 90s video game reference that doesn't really exist, but in my head. See, these are the tidbits that listeners, I think, tune in for. But anyway, so we pretty much get the same cold open as the 80s original, with him changing into a disguise and walking through the house, except this is one of the scenes that I don't think it's as good as the original one. I have to admit, I kind of laughed. My guy changed his hair color from brown to brown. And I do think that that O'Quinn in the original was a much better master of disguise. And obviously the lack of blood took me out of it. Like, to me, this is a big part where the PG-13 really bothered me. I mean, damn, we found out later that they were bludgeoned to death and stabbed, right? I mean, it bothered me not having any blood at all. Like, there were no dick scene here like there was in the original, but Dylan Walsh shows it off plenty in Nip Tuck, so go watch that if you want to see that there. But anyway, it's still a very creepy scene. Shout out to Charlie Clouser, who was responsible for the soundtrack. I thought it was phenomenal. Fun fact, Clouser was actually a member of the band 9 Inch Nails, and also worked on the entire Saw franchise, Dead Silence, and American Horror Story. And it's also worth noting that the unedited version of this which is literally only 48 seconds longer than the theatrical version. It does show a little bit more of the dead family at the start, but still no blood. This scene does have the most added shots, however, which includes a sink full of the stuff he used to kill them. That does have a little bit of blood on it. At 14 whole seconds worth of added footage there. So lastly, like one thing I'm really glad they did here, and what I alluded to earlier with the updating it, was that I like the bigger focus on the whole forensics and the police investigation. It really shows how he's like able to get away with some of this shit for so long, and it just feels more realistic than the old one. And Dustin, I'm asking you because you're the only one that'll know this. Did you recognize who Susan's sister is? Paige Turco.
She looked very familiar, but I didn't look into it.
April O'Neil in Ninja Turtles
Holy
2
shit,
and 3.
it is.
Yeah. So and yeah, obviously Penn Badgley is phenomenal, and that's no different here. It doesn't bother me with them gender swapping the main kid in this one either. I think it fits better, honestly. I think the relationship between stepdad and son is very, very well done in this one. And like Dustin said, this could 100% be a prequel to the series You. You got a murderous stepfather, plus you're dating Amber Heard. I mean, I'm just saying, I'd turn into a serial killer probably as well.
I can't follow that. Come on, man. Shout out to my man, Captain Jack Sparrow. All right, anyway. Look, I love this open. I actually think this is really well done. I love the way it's shot. Of course, I would have, in a normal horror movie setting with an R rating, I would like to see a little more blood, a little more of the family. But I think the way that Dylan Walsh plays it so straight that the face he gets to keep while he's making the toast and everything else, I just love it. Like, I think it's so good. One thing I'm a big fan of is peanut butter on toast. Just thought I'd throw that out there. So I don't know if that makes me a sociopathic murderer, but it's pretty elite if you ask me, brother.
What about peanut butter on your penis?
Motherfucker. You can't see, Nico, you see who the real problem is? I'm not the one that always brings Halloween and everything. It's that motherfucker right there.
What? It's Halloween.
It's not the same thing, and you know it. Peanut butter on toast is delicious. Peanut butter on my penis jokes don't belong in a Halloween movie. God damn it.
Sorry, guys. I worked him up. He's gonna be yelling at us all the time.
Okay, I'm gonna slow it down. Yeah, well, that's true. Hey, you know what? Save it for a Halloween episode. All right. Anyway,
God, there's another one.
Again,
we're gonna do another one.
Damn right, Halloween ends, brother.
Ever done. All right, go ahead.
Oh, fuck off. As many Friday episodes as we've done. Kiss my ass. Anyway, don't. I'm getting back to the stepfather now, if everyone's okay. All right. Woosah. And plus, I'm yelling in the mic, which people already complain about on the Apple ratings. Okay.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Hashtag blame Brian. Blame the old guy. All right. So anyway, I really do like the open. I think it's awesome. But it's so crazy. This is a charming son of a bitch. He could walk into a grocery store and pick up a woman just like that. And, a lot of guys out there are swinging and missing on a regular basis. This motherfucker's got a quick pickup. I mean, good for him, man. I actually think he looks better with the beard, but he decides to shave it. And like Brian said, he dyes his hair, but he doesn't actually do anything different, which is hilarious. It's so true. But easy pickup. And, I really like the relationship between stepfather and son. One thing I will say is, man, this whole 6 months later thing seems super rushed to me. Not that if you don't know, if you know, but man, it feels like a really quick time jump for this mom to be getting back into the swing of things. I know almost feels like a weird rebound marriage to me. And even though the family is accepting enough at this party, you can kind of tell there's some red flags with them. They're not 100% bought in even early on at this party. And, Penn Badgley plays the character of Michael so well. Great name, by the way, Michael. I like the character he plays, but you guys both touched on it. He's literally going against his own character about a decade later. Like it's really crazy to see those two side, to just see the difference in the characters he's playing. But I love the dynamic, and I like the scene where they're taking shots. It's normal enough. It's played straight, but there's still that tinge of creepiness that I don't quite get with the original, and maybe that's just an age thing for me, where I will fully admit I first of all, unlike some people on this show, I like 80s movies, but sometimes movies don't always age as well. But the original one had such a low budget, which I'm going to get into at the end because it's really funny to compare and contrast. The fact that this movie got a remake is hilarious to me, considering the budget of the original and what the original one made when it came out. The fact that this got like a remake reboot is really interesting to me. So, all in all, I think this is a good set of scenes, and the story itself has hooked me. And I'm with you, Brian. I like the gender swap of the which kid gets the focus here. I think it's done really well.
First of all, I'm gonna break this down as I saw it for the first time, and then I'll throw in my thoughts after watching the remake, or watching the original. But first of all, when we get introduced to him, and he's walk through the house, he shaves and he changes his hair color and everything, we know immediately that he's the villain, and because the score does such a good job of painting the picture of what's going on here, and then it's reinforced when he changes his appearance and shaves and all that. And so like they do a good job, like off rip, letting us know what's going on with him there. Then he goes, but we still don't know what he's done. Then he goes downstairs and he turns the Christmas music on, and that just shows us, okay, this guy's a fucking sociopath, especially once you see all the dead bodies.
Chill the fuck out. Chill the fuck out. Stop Christmas music hate.
First of all, fuck Christmas music, man. Work retail in the mall for 8 years and then tell me you still like Christmas music. Second of all, can I go? Second of all, we see these dead bodies in here, and it just really drives home the fact even more. Like, who's going to listen to Christmas music that's joyous when there's all these dead children around here? So, I mean, I guess man, fuck them kids' award goes to David Harris or whatever you want to call him. I like how we go from there immediately to like a police scene, like where they're discussing this case. I like that. They don't do that in the original. They don't immediately go there and let us know what's going on, that they're onto him, that he's got this pattern or anything. So I like that they do that in the remake here. And then, once we meet Michael, like I said, he has that Joe Goldberg look in his eyes when he meets David for the first time. He's skeptical of him and he's standoffish, and he just looks like, and there you were. You came into my life and blah, blah, blah. He just, like, he's got that monologue going in his head. So this is absolutely his origin story. This kind of trauma would lead anyone to be a killer. But there's just this natural tension built in between David and Michael. And it's especially, I think it's a great line when he sees Michael and he says, "Oh, you look like a man. I was expecting a boy," because I think that, like, it kind of threw David back, threw him off a little bit. He didn't expect to have someone who could be capable of stopping him. I think, at least that's how I took it. Like, I think he saw her in the grocery store, like, this is my next victim. She's got small kids. And then, oh shit, you're a full grown man. But I like the dialogue that we get here. Now, in regards to the original, I agree, man. The original, he did a much better job of changing his appearance, and he does it even more as the movie goes on. So that was much better than the remake. The original was rated R, so you can't fault the new one for the lack of, well, I mean, you can, because it was ultimately their decision, but you can't fault them for the lack of blood and gore because they got that PG-13 rating. But at the same time, that was their decision. So it was a poor decision, like you said, Brian. Ultimately, it's a pretty good set of scenes. I'm in at this point because I like the cast a lot, and the storyline seems to be. Now, I will mention this as we get to the close of it. Actually, no, I'll mention it here. I actually don't like watching the original and watching the remake. I don't like that we know from the beginning that he's a killer, because I think it kind of it just prolongs. It makes the movie feel like it drags a little bit. Like some of the tense scenes, lose their luster when nothing happens. And then once we get to the ending, which I won't spoil because we'll get there, but once we get to it and we see how the ending happens, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Like he spent all this time with these people when we knew that his end game was to kill them anyway. Like this is what he does. So I almost wish that we wouldn't have known that. They would have just sprinkled in traces here and there. Like maybe Mrs. Cutter, which we'll get to her. I know I'm jumping ahead, but when she says what she says, maybe they just give us little nuggets throughout here, and we're in the position of Amber Heard's character. What was her name? Kelly. We're in Kelly's shoes to where we're like, is Michael over exaggerating? Is he full of shit, or is there some validity to his theory here? But instead, we, the audience, know that he did this. And so we're just waiting for shit to hit the fan. And it kind of is a letdown in how it all plays out, in my opinion. So that's my biggest issue with the movie, Nico. When I was telling you in the group chat, like I was hinting around like I didn't like the movie. It's not that I don't like the movie. It's just I think that it's kind of a letdown because I don't know. I wanted more. But we get a fucking murder within the first of serious murder scene within the first 2 minutes of the movie. And then we get 90 plus minutes of this cat and mouse game that really doesn't have a payoff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's fair. And really quick, I juggled back and forth with knowing that he's a killer the whole time, whether I didn't like that, I like that. Like I debated that in my head. My only, not pushback, but just like kind of like where I threw up my hand and said, fuck it. And it's, the name of the movie is The Stepfather. So obviously this quote unquote stepfather guy is probably a bad dude. But I tend to agree with you to the point where it does take away something from the movie to already know the stepfather is a killer, to know that he's already crazy. I think a little bit of, I mean, you can't really avoid it when you name the movie what it's named, but like to have a little bit of mystery hanging on there, I think would have added more intrigue for sure.
Here's my fix and my solution to that. It's still called The Stepfather, but you get the stepfather convinces the mom that he is crazy and gets him shipped back to, instead of him wanting to stay home, he gets the son shipped off to military school. So the stepson or the son is like, no, he's going to kill you. Trust me. Mom's not buying it. She has him shipped off. And then he ends up killing it. And so then it's like throughout the movie, you got this, whose side am I on here? Who do I believe? And then in the end, we find out it actually is a stepfather that's a bad guy because he killed the whole family.
That's fair.
So I don't know. It's just that's
okay.
On the spot fix, but
right. That's fair.
No, Dustin, I can totally see why someone would dislike that, but I'm with Mike. Honestly, the movie is called The Stepfather. There's going to be a trailer for the movie that's going to portray him as the bad guy, and like if you wouldn't go see a Chucky movie and be like, oh damn, this movie sucks, Chucky's the killer.
Well, that's fair, but like I said, the ending, he didn't.
Yeah, that's fair too. The ending,
I guess
I don't like the ending
alert.
either.
Who the fuck's he kill? he just like falls through the ceiling and goes away, or falls off the roof and goes away, and we never. Well, I mean, we see him again. He's got his next victim, but I don't know. It was just kind of a letdown.
No, I'm with you. I don't like the ending as well.
He killed more neighbors than he did his family.
Yeah. I was going to agree with you too, Dustin, about the police scene and not being in the original. I like that because one of the nitpicks I had with the original is he kills his family, then he's automatically in the next scene with another family already. Yeah. And like they didn't establish like he had a history or they were after him or nothing like that. I didn't like that either. But let's move on to the next set of scenes. Kelly and Michael are swimming, and Susan yells out to her son Sean to turn down his video games. But he can't hear, and David storms into the room, grabbing the back of his neck, yelling, "Your mother said turn it down," visibly scaring the boy, and he walks out with an evil look on his face. David asks Susan if it's a bad idea Kelly and Michael are so intimate so young. She says to stop being so old-fashioned. At dinner, Sean is acting skittish, still scared from earlier. David says, "This is great. I miss family dinners." Michael asks if he was married before, and Susan tells him that he lost his wife and daughter in a drunk driving accident. The daughter says it wasn't all Dad's fault about the parent separation and brings up a mom on the news who drove off a bridge killing her kids. David says, "How could someone do that?" The doorbell rings and the two youngest yell "Dad" and run to him. David asks Michael if he will say hello to him. Susan tells Jay to be back by Sunday, and she asks about his co-ed girlfriend, and the two argue with each other with slick remarks. David invites Michael to lunch tomorrow before his open house. Michael wakes up and overhears Susan and Miss Cutter talking. Susan is very allergic to all the cats she has. Miss Cutter describes a story she saw on America's Most Wanted, and the sketch looked just like David. The two share some intimate kisses, and David walks out the house, visibly pissed as he tells Susan where the diner is where they're having lunch. Michael goes into the kitchen and she offers to make him breakfast. David stops in front of Miss Cutter's house to say hello very creepily. David and Michael are at lunch now, and David asks Michael if he would be his best man in the wedding. He says he's really happy he's home. Michael agrees, and David says meeting Susan changed his life. Losing his wife and Michelle was super hard. Michelle was his whole life. He now tells Michael and Kelly not to rush into having kids. David now slips up calling his daughter Michelle the wrong name, Lisa now. Michael calls him out and he says, it's Lisa Michelle. We now see David bashing the hell out of an open house sign into the ground in frustration. He snaps out of it when the buyers say, excuse me, and then he says they'll love this house. David drives home now, giving Miss Cutter a death stare. He goes into the house and searches America's Most Wanted and sees the Grady Edwards sketch. Ring at the doorbell now at Miss Cutter's. She goes inside to answer the door as the bell goes off several times. She opens the door, but no one is there. She goes back inside and jump scare with a cat jumping. She reaches for the cat, who acts very scared, and she closes the door, and we see David behind her. He grabs her and throws her down the basement stairs. He picks up a cat and goes down to her, and he smothers her, killing her. Back to Kelly and Michael in the pool, and she asks if he's going to be his best man. He says, yeah, I guess. Kelly tells him maybe she should start talking to his real father. The two are in bed now, getting intimate, and Kelly asks if he closes the door. He goes to close the door, and David scares them. Michael asks if he was watching them. He says no and walks off, and Michael shoots him a bird. Susan and David are giving him the be careful speech. Michael snaps, asking what people think about him and his mother. She says for him to apologize, and he refuses. Susan asks him how was his day, and she sneezes. Jay storms in pissed, saying, don't ever touch my kids again. David tried to choke Sean. David says he was showing discipline, which is lacking in this family. Jay yells out, what do you even know about this guy? David hugs Susan as Michael walks Jay outside. Michael hands him his phone and he says, you stopped me from doing something stupid in there. Jay says he doesn't like him and asks what's he know about him. He asks Michael, I heard you don't want to talk to me. He says, I left your mom, not you. All right, Brian, that's the next set of scenes I got. Go ahead, brother.
So this video game scene where David grabs Sean is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It comes out of nowhere, I think, and after pretty much an entire first part of the movie showing David trying to like have a real relationship with the whole family, like I almost get lulled into forgetting how he is. And I think Walsh does a tremendous job of selling it both ways. that coupled with Jay barging in to handle it later on, I really loved that little mini arc that we had going on. I also love the fact that the real father is actually playing a part in this. Like, besides the fact that it's more realistic to families nowadays, I think it really lets Jay basically play the part that the brother was playing in the original movie, but this feels more organic and not forced like that other one was. Shout out to John Tenney, who plays him. Uh, he's also in one of my favorite movies of all time, Tombstone, and one of my favorite TV shows of all time, True Detective, as well. And speaking of that, like the America's Most Wanted playing a part feels more realistic as well. And again, like I really like the updating that was done by McCormick and Cardone. Now, what doesn't feel realistic is my guy giving the cat lady next door the stank eye when she already thinks that you're the guy from America's Most Wanted. I thought that was super dumb. She would have called the police instantly. We all know that lady. But let's be real, it is kind of funny because that drawing looked about as much like him as the amateur sketch of the leprechaun in that news story YouTube video. Who all seen the leprechaun say yeah? But yeah, no. Like they should have gone with the normal picture like they did in the original because come on, the dude isn't in any family pictures ever. No wedding photos. I mean, they do kind of try to explain that somewhat later on, but come on, whatever. Like he's too sloppy in covering his tracks to not have a picture out there somewhere. The Miss Cutter kill, I think, was done probably the best it could have been done, not using blood. Probably goes with what Mike said earlier, where it could have been so much better. But most movies, I think, would have had her break her neck after falling down the stairs. I like the added touch of him plugging her nose. Probably not near long enough, but I liked, how they tried to go the extra mile there. So all in all, a real good group of scenes. I felt like good character, good arc building going on, and nice to see David starting to show more and more of his true self. Actually, in the unrated version, it has one extra shot of Miss Cutter's head hitting the ground after she falls down the stairs, and more footage of her lying there instead of David and the cat like it does in the rated version. So, just a little fun fact there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I here's my thing about this video game scene. While I think it's well done, I think it's well acted, and I mean I like that we get a glimpse into who the real David is. Part of me feels like it's a little early. It's almost too much too soon. Again, we know what he's capable of because we saw the open, but I kind of wanted to be, kind of waiting, with bated breath for that switch to flip, and we never. I mean, we got it a little quick, in my opinion. Now, I understand the runtime, and I commend this movie for having the runtime that it has. But I do feel like it was a little quick, but I really like the scene. So I'm kind of, half and half there on how that plays out. And in this set of scenes, I love the argument, the disarray between father and stepfather, especially once you learn the story there. You get a little bit of that man of the house. It's not your house anymore. There's a Toby Keith song about that. If you know anything about country music, you know what I'm talking about. But and it's not the only song about that. But I mean, you can we know that David is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I can completely see how in that situation Jay looks like like he's wild. Like, clearly he's the one that didn't want to be with the mom anymore. He cheated on her. He stepped out. It appears he hasn't been the best father up to this point anyway. Not necessarily a bad one, just maybe he could have been around a little bit more and handled his affairs a little differently. So it's interesting to kind of know the stepfather is a bad dude, but in this set of scene, Brian, you mentioned it. It's hard to know, like it's hard to separate sometimes in this early part of the movie that David's a bad guy because even with the video game scene where he grabs the back of the son's neck, you kind of he does such a good job of like wrapping you up in his family vibe that you forget that he did that, and you forget that he killed people in the beginning of the movie. Like he does a really good job of just kind of making you wrap up in his fake story that he's had for himself. He's done a really good job of not only fooling the family but me sometimes, and I think it works really, really well. But I do like that we get the awkward interaction at the diner, and not remembering the daughter's name, like little pieces here and there, little slip ups that we get. I think is stuff like that. I'm a big fan of the grabbing of the neck. I wasn't a super big fan of, but again, to kind of wrap it up, I like the father son talk at the car. It's real. I feel like there's a lot of people that watch that movie that can relate to that, and I really like that about it. But what we're about to get into with David apologizing to Susan, I just really like this portrayal that makes me forget that we're dealing with this sociopathic murderer. You almost feel bad for him a little bit. You don't, but you almost do. So I think, again, another effective set of scenes. You have Miss Cutter and all that stuff, and I would have loved, as Brian mentioned, to see a really bloody, gruesome, murder that we're used to, but we don't get that. But I still think it's effective in what it tries to do.
All right, so on this set of scenes, I mean, the video game scene was very shocking, I guess, because he hadn't really shown any kind of outward emotion like that when it comes to anger or frustrations or hints that he's this killer or this violent person to his family until this set of scenes. And it just took something as simple as the TV's too loud and he didn't hear his mother, so he's going to grab the kid by the back of the neck. Like that, to me, that doesn't work actually with David's character because that's a loose end. He didn't tighten up that loose end. He just grabbed the kid by the back of the neck, squeezed him, and then sent him on about his merry way. You had to know that the kid was going to tell his dad that happened. And I do like you said, Brian. I like that the fact that the real father is playing a part in this. Contrast to the original, where the dad had passed away. The dad's still part of these kids' lives, and it causes some good tension between dad and stepdad, and it's also pretty frustrating, honestly, where she just automatically sides with David. Like, first of all, I don't know about y'all, but my mom, if she found out that my stepdad, even if I would have made it up, if I'd have just made it up and be like, my stepdad grabbed me by the back of the neck and it hurt me, even if I made that up, she would immediately taken my side and questioned him and got to the bottom of it. But she immediately, after Jay was ushered out the front door by Michael, she turned to him and said, "I'm sorry about that. Like, what kind of mom are you? You just a horny horn dog there. You're not worried about your kids or your family. You're just trying to get a nut. You're just worried about David." Like, that's frustrating to me. Anyway, Mrs. Cutter was frustrating because, like you said, I mean, if she's really this tuned in and she has a suspicion that this is a killer that has done this multiple times and he's found his new victim and it's in my neighborhood and all this stuff. I think that she would have probably called America's Most Wanted and been like, "Hey, this motherfucker's across the street," or she would at least alerted the local authorities. Especially if she broke the news all over town that someone was having an affair. Like, she wouldn't have just kept this to herself and then talked to the mom first. Like, I think that she would have put this news out there to at least someone else, which also would have, caused some suspicion once they found Mrs. Cutter's body. They'd have been like, "Well, she did tell me that David is a killer," and that maybe they could have dusted the house for some fingerprints there. But the kill itself was, how did he get inside? Like, this motherfucker. Honestly, David reminds me a lot of the character Dexter from the show Dexter, because he's one sneaky bastard that's pretty careful about his kills. So that can be appreciated, but he rings the doorbell and then no signs of forced entry or anything. He just turns up in the house and shoves her down the steps. And that's a pretty brutal way for an old lady to go, I'll admit. And then he just smothers her to death with his bare hands. Like, that's some shit right there, man. But overall, it's an okay set of scenes. We get a death and we get a confrontation. So this is a pretty good set of scenes in my opinion.
Susan comforts Sean, and David says he's sorry what he did wasn't right, and he says this is all new to me and I will make mistakes. He promises it'll never happen again, and they shake hands. Susan, however, is visibly upset. David looks out the window and sees Michael and Jay hug, and it infuriates him. David tells Susan he shouldn't have done it, and he needs to gain their respect. She tells him to trust, and she says she's not okay with physical force. Michael's phone goes off, and it's his dad saying he was glad to see him. He goes to use the bathroom, hearing David talking to himself, saying, I got to make this work. It's all right. I'll tell her I'm sorry. The floorboard creaks as Michael backs away from the railing. We're at the realty office, and Jackie tells David he has to get these forms done and provide a picture ID. They can't keep paying him under the table. That night, David tells Susan he just wasn't enjoying doing realty work, and you can see him getting upset as she wants to keep talking about it. He says he'll look for something online that doesn't require much travel. Michael and Sean are playing video games loudly as Susan leaves to hang out with Jackie and Leah for a drink. David is job hunting and going to go for a run. Susan tells David she apologizes about the work argument. She wants him to be as happy as she is, and all he has to say back is, have fun. Ring at the doorbell as we see David lining up pencils like a psycho. Jay asks about the kids, and he apologizes to David. He says he's headed to the airport and wanted to see the kids before he left. Apology accepted, and come say goodbye. Jay now asks David about swimming for the Ducks. The phone rings. It's Susan telling David about Jay stopping by. She asks him to just stay out of the way. He hangs up, and Jay now calls him out on the whole swimming team thing. He asks why he lied to Michael about college and swimming, and asks what else he's lied about. He says he'd like some answers as he's smashed in the face with a vase. Michael pauses the game, saying he heard something. Jackie is telling Susan she's confused. He seems so good at the job. David is grabbing Jay's luggage now from the taxi, taking it inside. We see Jay tied up and gagged in the basement. David now begins to smother him with a plastic bag. Michael is calling his dad's phone, and David grabs it, hanging it up before Michael can hear it ringing. Michael walks into the basement now, calling out David's name, and Michael says he doesn't need anything and turns around and leaves. Jackie now tells Susan she's rushing into this wedding. She thinks it's fishy that the same day she asks about his past, he ups and quits. Susan says she's sounding like Jay now, and she says he loves the kids and he makes her happy. Susan and Leah share a toast. She asks David, where's Michael? David says he's in his room. He's upset his dad never showed up. He makes a confession. He accidentally broke the crystal vase, and she says she didn't even like it anyways. Jackie asks Leah, now she doesn't think that's weird. Leah says it is weird that he always pays in cash. Who doesn't want the miles? Jackie tells her, I'm going to give Jay a call. Maybe David is worth checking into. Susan goes into Michael's room asking he never showed up. She now tells Michael that's why David is so important to me. He wants to be there for you. Michael gets fed up. He ain't trying to have this conversation. And Susan walks out. David is in the basement and he yells out to Susan he'll be right up. He sends Michael a text from Jay's phone saying, sorry, but I did check out David. I don't like him, but he seems to be who he says he is. Michael turns the tunes up and cries. David locks up Jay's luggage in the basement and locks the basement door. All right, go ahead, Brian. That's the next set of scenes.
Again, with April O'Neil asking for his ID and social and stuff like that, I really liked that aspect of this because, again, it shows an explanation of how he's avoiding all of this stuff, especially in modern day times, which, the other one, the old one, the 80s one, didn't really have to contend with a lot of the stuff that they do today. So I liked that. I appreciated it. My guy David should have known better than to mess with a reporter from Channel 6. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, also a very tense scene, with killing Jay as well as having Michael, almost catch them twice. Although it was a little convenient, but you got plot armor, so I could have just used a better kill. The unedited cut isn't much better. It just has some added scenes with Jay fighting back some more and a blood smearing on the side of his head, which isn't visible in the theatrical version at all. Also, great acting by Penn. When he received that fake text and he starts tearing up in the bed, God, that felt very well done and a nice callback to the original with the headphones. I thought they did very well in the set of scenes. Short and sweet for me on this set. That's all I have.
Yeah, that's probably my man. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, I guess, just because it's so well acted by Penn. But I like this back and forth between Susan and David. It's really the first interaction you get where the relationship cracks a little bit, because you're kind of waiting on, because after the revelation that David grabbed the back of the son's neck and all that stuff, and after the scene with the dad, she kind of falls into David's arms and is really upset by what Jay has done. But it takes a little while to get around to the interaction between Susan and David. And when we finally get it, Susan says, hey, that's not how we do things in this house. That's not how I would discipline. And it's really the first crack that you get between those two, which I find pretty interesting. And I'm glad we finally get there with them. But you're absolutely, one thing about this, you're absolutely right. Just obviously Jay comes by, you get all the lies with the swim team, which, by the way, just looking at this man, the minute this man said he was a swimmer at Oregon, I would have looked that motherfucker up on the internet, even in 2009. Absolutely. Be like, oh, well, I'm sorry. What was your name again? What year did you swim? I would have done that immediately. Just throwing that out there. So the fact that, he gets caught in that lie and that's kind of ends up being one of his undoings, I think is really interesting. But I agree. That fake text scene is so powerful because it's really, Michael acts tough up until this point, but this is the first time we see him get really emotional about the situation with his dad. Because, he kind of, again, he's been off at military school. He kind of plays it like a tough guy in certain aspects. He's worried about his mom, but he's not overly emotional in any direction. And here he has to crank up the music and kind of shed the tears. And I think it's a really good scene. I really, really do. And, all this stuff with David and Jay, you just knew this was coming to this head. Like you just knew that Jay was going to be one of the kills from the first time he's on screen. And so, all right. I wish we could have seen it more. I wish there would have been, this is just going to be one of those things where I'm going to complain about the kills the entire time, because it's PG-13. The same, it's even worse in 2 weeks when we do Prom Night. By the way, I watched that recently in review, and it's even worse in that movie as far as the kills not being up to standard from what I'm used to. But all in all, I agree with you, Brian. I think this is a good, powerful set of scenes. Gets us to where we want to go. Last little thing here. I like that Jackie's onto him. I really do. I think it adds a little balance. She's kind of us in this movie where we're like, are you guys stupid? Do you not see what we see? That this man is clearly lying about everything. Especially when he wants to always pay cash. He quits the job, on and on and on. Like, nah, man, that is a red flag. And this small nitpick, but maybe even a big nitpick with this movie is Susan, my girl. A lot of respect, a lot of love for you. You went through a hard thing, but you got to open up your eyes. Holy shit. She's an idiot here, man. She is blinded by this relationship to not see some of these missteps along the way. So, good set of scenes. Again, this movie has me pretty interested, pretty hooked throughout the whole thing until the end.
So in this set of scenes, I mean, first of all, when Susan is talking to Sean and comforting him and all this, like I don't like how, again, David's just creeping outside the door and he just interjects in their conversation. To me, if I'm Susan or if Susan's anything like my mom, she would have told David, hey, can you give us a minute? Like, back the fuck up, dude. Like that. I don't know. It's just everything about her relationship with him is a red flag, which honestly makes it more, I guess, understandable that she just blew past all his red flags. Like they're a match made in red flag heaven. Then with, Jackie asking for the IDs and all this shit and him just up and quitting his job. Like, yeah, what are you doing, man? Like, Susan, you don't think, how could you not be suspicious of that? So she just, like I said, she's just chasing a nut. She ain't chasing true love and relationship. She just horny. And then, when Jay comes back to the house, we get that confrontation. But I do have issues with it because, Jay, if you've got these sneaking suspicions that this guy's not who you think he is and there's something off about him, I don't really know that I would let him out of your sight around a corner and then set yourself up to get murdered like that, man. Like that's not very vigilant on your part. So, and then a big issue I have with this set of scenes is, Michael. Michael could have caught him so many times. He, first of all, when he hears the vase shatter, they pause the video game and he just steps to the outside of the door there. If he just taken a couple more steps and looked down, there he would have seen it. And then later when David's got the body down in the basement and he's struggling with him and choking him out and smothering him, all this stuff. Again, you walk to the edge of the steps and you say, David? You can hear the strain in David's voice when he says, yeah, what do you need? Like, just take a couple steps to see what the fuck's going on. Maybe that's just me. Especially if you have these suspicions, which he's already building these suspicions that something's off with him, and your dad's supposed to be on his way. You may also look out in the, at any given moment into the street and you see a fucking taxi sitting in the middle of the road. Like, all these things are there. That's frustrating from a observer standpoint for the character. Like that, I don't think that this set of scenes was terribly well written because it does it at the very base level. It makes it tense. Like, oh, is he going to catch him? Is he going to catch him? But ultimately, he doesn't get close enough to catching him, or he doesn't catch him, and it's just ultimately frustrating. So, and then again, like I said, Susan just being so frustrating with how she's breezing past these red flags. He always pays in cash. He doesn't like his picture taken. The neighbor told you she thinks he's a murderer. Like, what? 6 months. You've known this guy 6 months, and you're getting married to him, and like her sister said, do you even know what religion he is? And I understand you don't care what religion he is, but It's just things you might want to know about the person you're going to spend quote unquote eternity with. And I say quote unquote because, marriages don't tend to last that long these days, but it is what it is. I hate to say she had it coming, but she kind of had it coming. You got to vet your spouse a little bit more than this.
Yeah, and big shout out to Celia Ward. She's my man Ben Randall's wife in one of my favorite movies, The Guardian. Shout out to her. But let's move on to the next set of scenes. And I agree with you guys. I think the him getting the text from his dad and him crying. I love that scene. It's powerful. David walks outside and sees cops out front of Miss Cutter's house. He asks the mailman what happened, and he tells him she's dead. Niece called several times to no answer. David tells Susan about the news, and she feels terrible now. She asks David to pick them up, the young kids from the dentist. David answers a call from Jackie, and she says, "We still need those papers for federal and state taxes," and she's leaving for Hawaii tomorrow. He hangs up on her pissed, and Michael says, "It's sad about Miss Cutter, huh?" David says, "It must have been her time." The doorbell goes off. It's Kelly. The two are outside doing college applications, and Michael brings up Miss Cutter's death. How did he know about her falling down the stairs and breaking her neck? Michael tells her all of the different things that are weird to him about David. She says it's fine. Relax, since your dad checked in on him. Michael walks away and jumps into the pool. She swims over to him saying, "You're obsessing." She says she was the same way with her mom. She says he should be obsessive with her. She doesn't want another long distance relationship. David walks out to the pool and tells them he's going to pick up Sean and Beth and for them to behave. Michael and Kelly go inside to look through his stuff. David gets a call. He doesn't have to go get the kids, so he turns around to go back home. Michael and Kelly are going through his closet when she hears him pull up. They hear the door close and she panics. David follows the water footprints upstairs as they hear David knock on Michael's bedroom door, but he's not in there. David looks through the rest of the house and looks outside and the pool is empty. He goes into a closet and sees a hanger moving, and then he hears a splash. They're back in the pool. David is suspicious. That night at dinner, David is looking stoic, and Susan asks Michael if he heard from his dad. David looks up and sees his last family he was with as he's asked if he's okay. Michael tells Kelly, maybe I am obsessing. His dad said he's okay. Come over and let's finish the college applications." Knock at Michael's door and David walks in asking how he's doing. He says he thought they were off to a good start, but now they're not on the same page. David says things are going to change. He says he always wants him to be upfront with him, and he needs to earn his mom's trust back. Michael walks downstairs that night and gets on the computer and notices America's Most Wanted has already been in the search history. He sees the Grady Edwards picture and prints it off and shows it to Kelly. Michael is back to obsessing and says he was into sales and never has his picture taken. Michael says it's fine, just forget about it. She asks more questions and he doesn't answer, and she storms away from him. She goes inside the house and she's startled by David now. He offers her a lemonade. He asks about their fight. He asks if there's anything he can help with. Michael seems to have something troubling him. He tells her we're like projects you women like to take on. He starts to creep her out and she puts her dress back on, and he says neither of us want to see Michael doing something stupid, and she walks away. Michael sees David staring at him from the pool. Michael stares at the Grady pictures and gets a text from his dad. Jackie texts Jay saying, "Tried to call, want to talk about David." Michael calls his dad's phone now and goes downstairs when he hears the phone ringing from his vent from the basement. David says he got a call about a new job. Susan walks in with groceries and Michael sneaks a picture of David as he tells Susan about a possible new job. Michael looks at the picture and now he's having dinner with the family, saying he should get a job so he can buy a car. Michael and David are having a stare off. Susan tells David she's going to go drop the kids off and be back in a couple of hours. He tells her, "I love you," as she walks out the door. And the next set of scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
So, just a question I had. So much was made of Michael being a big time swimmer, a big swimming guy. Like, it never comes back into play. Like, it never, never goes to fucking swimming practice or, hey, maybe have the finale take place in a pool or something where he survives some crazy attempt at drowning him or something like play off him swimming. To me, it just didn't come back into play at all, except for him getting back on a team that we didn't care anything about. Um, I also appreciate the attempt at the tension buildup. While we're looking for Michael and Amber Heard, if Michael was thinking quick, he would have just acted like, I don't know, like they were having sex. I mean, although with David, he probably would have pulled a Jason on them, but hell, I don't know. Again, props to the soundtrack at the dinner table, showing David start to lose it, and then the flashback to his old family. I thought that was a great touch. By the way, is it just me or does this pin badge? Is it Badgley, I think it is. Does he strike? He has a striking resemblance to a young Henry Cavill in this movie. And my guy is a murderer from way back and doesn't delete his damn internet browser history. Come on, like, and this will be the only time I ever say that I agree with Amber Heard. But her saying that sketch looks nothing like David, I said it 2 scenes ago. I'm with you on that one, Kelly. That's all I really had on this set of scenes too. But this is probably the first set where I felt like it maybe drug on a little bit. Besides him leaving the phone on ring, not a lot happened. I mean, this group could have been, this group of scenes, it could have been slimmed down. I think it feels a little repetitive, and we are, like, in my opinion, about 15 minutes long on this movie. To me, go ahead.
Yeah, my man David is probably one of the sloppiest villains we've had in this entire show's history so far.
Yes,
he does a really bad job of covering his tracks. It's funny that he keeps getting away with it because I guess he's just really good on dipping out in the middle of the night and escaping. But, like, my man, you're doing an awful job of covering your own ass. Like, the entire movie, he doesn't do a good job. It's almost drives me insane how bad he is. Like, I'm like, oh, well, I mean, look, I just want to be honest. I could be a better murderer than this guy. I mean, I'm just being like, I could get away with it longer than this motherfucker could, okay, in real life. So I would never do that, but, just hypothetically, if the situation occurred, I'd be better than David. Here's the thing about Kelly, and we really haven't touched on Amber Heard's character a ton, probably because she's just kind of there in most of the movie until this set of scenes to me, when she really starts to doubt Michael's story or how he's feeling. And maybe I'm looking too far into this, but I don't think so. I think it's intentional. They flip the very normal horror trope of the boyfriend doubting the girlfriend, not believing the girlfriend. They've flipped that here, and now the girlfriend doesn't believe anything that the boyfriend is saying. I think that's intentional, and I think it works really well as far as you just kind of want to grab Kelly and be like, no, he's not fucking crazy. Stop saying that. The same way I do in Paranormal Activity, where I just want to grab the boyfriend and be like, well, you shut the fuck up. This is real, my man. Like, same situation where I think that they've just flipped it. And I think it works really, really well in this set of scenes. And, you mentioned this, Brian. This is where I'm kind of like not looking at the phone to see what time it is, but kind of wondering when we're going to get to the getting here. Where's this all going? I do think this is the one set of scenes to me where the movie dips just a smidge, and I can feel its runtime. And again, it's a short runtime, so no big complaints, but it's just, the little things where, okay, we know now who he is, and Michael has figured out who he is, and I want to see everyone else kind of get to that same conclusion as well. So I think all this extra stuff just kind of wastes a little time, but I don't think it's a bad set of scenes. I just think it runs a little long.
All right, so when the cops discover Miss Cutter's body, like, that, I don't know, like, she didn't exactly look like she fell down the stairs. She looked like she was thrown down the stairs. I don't know, like, it was a little, how could you not suspect foul play here? And I feel like real cops would have been able to tell that the fall's not what killed her. She was struggling to breathe. I don't know. Maybe they would have found some of his DNA under her fingernails, because I'm sure she was trying to claw at his hand to get it off her mouth. That's just nitpicks, I guess. But, the tension between Michael and Kelly, like I said, Amber Heard playing an unsupportive significant other who would have thunk it, but, she not believing him obsessing over it. That's a good secondary storyline here. I don't dislike that or anything like that. It was pretty tense when he convinces her to go in the house and let's snoop around, let's try to look through his stuff. and then oh shit, he's back. You think, oh god, they're gonna get caught. He's gonna kill him right here. So I can appreciate that tension, and I really like when he looks out the window and the pool's empty, and then he's right where they were hiding, and as he goes to open the door, he goes inside, and then splash! All of a sudden, they're in the the deep end of the pool, not the depth, Johnny. So that was pretty cool, but I don't like how it was never really explained how they got out there. Like, there didn't appear to be any other doors or windows that they could have gone through. Like, what, they just David Blaine their asses in the pool? So that was kind of continuity plot hole, I guess. I don't know. And then, when Michael finds the shit on the computer, I agree, Brian. Like, that's a loose end. There's too many inconsistencies with his character. There's no way that he's done this multiple times and been successful at it, based on what we've seen, how he's reacting with this family. Like, he's leaving things untied, and maybe it's just he's losing his touch and he's needing to get out the game, so he's getting sloppy. Maybe that's it, but that's not what it appears to be to me. He's just not very good at hiding his tracks. It doesn't feel like. Overall, it's an okay set of scenes. It's just like I said, with the beginning, us knowing that he's this murderer, by now I feel like, okay, man, you've been with this woman for 6 months. You've been with her, all of her kids now, for what's presumably, at least a couple weeks here. Like, you should be murdered by now. You should be on to the next town's how I'm feeling. So to me, the runtime, even though it's not a very long movie, the runtime's just kind of like, let's wrap this shit up.
All right, here's the ending. Michael gets out of the shower now, and David is right outside the door and asks what his plans are. He says he might go see Kelly, and he says, be careful, there's a big storm coming. Michael goes into his room and notices David deleted the picture of himself. Michael is at Kelly's now and says, he went into my room and deleted it. She tries to rationalize, but he says he's hiding something. Jackie is on a video call with Leah saying she told Jay to do a background check on him. Jackie tells Leah she'll call her later, and they hang up the video call. Jackie emails Susan saying she's going to call an investigator and he's lied to her. David deletes the email and cancels the family's newspaper subscription. We see Jackie packing up last-minute luggage, loading her car up. She hears a noise by the pool and sees an umbrella has fallen into the pool now. She grabs it with the pool hook, and David appears behind her and drowns her. He lets her body fall into the water. Susan is home now and is scared by David, and she asks if Jackie called. She goes upstairs to change clothes, and he locks the door. Susan says she hates storms, she can never sleep, and David gives her a sleeping pill to take. We see David has the whole kit out, ready to kill and leave the house. Michael tells Kelly he's going to go find out what's in those basement cabinets. Michael sneaks into the basement from outside. He gets a crowbar and begins to break into the cabinets. Kelly gets an alert her phone's dying. He finds his dad's briefcase in the cabinets, and his dad's phone has been broken. David checks on Susan to make sure she's sound asleep. He opens the freezer as Kelly calls to let him know that a light came on in the house. The phone falls and the battery pops out, and it falls under the freezer. Kelly grows impatient and makes a run for the house. Michael finds his dad's dead body in the freezer. David finds Kelly outside and punches her, knocking her out. David blocks the entrance so Michael can't escape. David drags Kelly inside. Michael bangs on the basement door. David begins pulling knives, hammers, duct tape out, slamming them on the kitchen counter. Susan walks downstairs asking what's all the noise. He says this isn't the family for him. He thought he could make it work. He thought that you could be Miss Grady Edwards, but you can't. And she says, what did you say? He's confused and says, who am I here? He chases after her with a knife upstairs. She makes it to the bathroom and locks the door. Michael makes it out of the basement and finds Kelly. They hear commotion upstairs, and Susan stabs David in the neck with a piece of glass as he makes it into the bathroom with her. Michael and Kelly make it to Susan, and they run up the attic ladder as David pursues them. David says, watch your step. There's still rotted boards he hasn't replaced. Michael falls through the ceiling as Kelly grabs a big saw. Kelly and Susan now fall through the ceiling. Michael tackles David through a window and pushes him off the roof. Michael looks over the roof and David grabs him, and they both fall to the patio deck. We hear sirens now and see Michael being rushed into surgery. Michael wakes up and asks what happened. He was in a coma for a month. He asked about David and asked where is he. By the time the police got there, he was gone already. We now see two young boys running around a store, and their mother chases after them. They run into David, and he says, "Boys will be boys." He tells her his wife and daughter were lost in an accident story, and he introduces himself to her as Chris Ames, and the film ends. All right, Brian, what do you think about the ending?
Yeah, it was meh AF to me. Like, first of all, my guy, you can delete all the emails you want, but there's a trash bin, right? Like, even back in 2009, even though that looked like it was fucking 1995 Windows or something, but okay. Just a little nitpick. Again, I think the way that he killed Jackie should have been the way that he tried to kill Michael, and let him use his swimming, breathing to survive somehow or something. I don't know. It's my least favorite kill. She went way too fast with not that much of a struggle. The uncut version does have about 8 seconds worth of extra footage, all of which is just her being drowned longer and a shot of her screaming under the water. Worth mentioning though that this is the last of the uncut footage as well. Ending was okay, I guess. If you, I don't know. Like I said, it was mad to me. A little too happy for the movie. I think Mom should have bit it. I think she should have bit the dust. I think she should have been killed. Um, if his plan was to kill them all along anyway, why did he just knock her out with the sleeping pill? Like, why didn't he just go ahead and kill her? Like, it would have saved him a lot of running around. But anyway, plus somebody would have actually died. It would have been, I don't know. Anyway, as far as the famous "Who am I here?" line. Like, this one got a lot of flack on the interwebs that I read of that scene just not hitting like the older one did. But I don't think that's fair. I like the way that both of them did it, and I'm glad that they did it a little bit more realistic here than the '80s one did. It felt more like a real conversation. The ending fight was meh. I mean, nothing really you didn't see coming, and Amber Heard with the electrical saw and all of these near misses. There was actually a scene in the trailer that didn't even end up in either of the cuts, where the saw like dangles over Amber Heard's head. I don't know. I just didn't care for the setup of the sequel either. That which never happened, which I know Dylan Walsh touches on in his intro that he did for us, but it was just man. Oh, one last thing: the ending scene. The new girl Dylan sees, Jessalyn Gilsig, was on Nip Tuck with Walsh as well.
I agree with you, Brian, and I don't think I'm alone here. I think this ending is just okay. You know, it's a movie that I felt had done a good job setting all of this up so far, being a pretty solid suspense thriller, and it doesn't stick the landing. I just think it's one, it runs a little long, or it feels a little long, and some of the fight sequence here, and I'm gonna jump around, but some of the fight sequence here where they're falling through the roof and it just goes on a little long for me. Like, I don't think it's 100% necessary. I feel like we could have got to the same conclusion that we got to by just having a brief brouhaha instead of this really long uh, drug out thing, with all three of them involved. But, I think they do a decent job of keeping it suspenseful, making you think the mom is going to die, which is interesting that you say you thought she should have died, Brian. And I don't necessarily disagree with that because I like a movie that has stakes. It's as much as I love the Scream franchise, it's one of the big complaints I had up until recently that never felt like a movie has stakes in that franchise until recently. So I like a movie that has the balls to, kind of kill off someone important here. And in this movie, the mom is kind of the most important character when you think about it, considering there's two guys kind of vying for her love here. So I tend to agree with you. I just think this whole ending is a little bleh to me. If you're not going to kill the mom, then I would just go ahead and kill the stepfather. I know they were setting up a sequel, but I kind of feel like he's been such an asshole the whole time, letting him get away. And while I'm not against the movie not doing a traditional happy ending, like I like that sometimes, but for me, him getting away and doing the same thing over again, the fact that we didn't get a sequel kind of ruins it. So I think it falls flat on its face. Now, there's some good stuff here. I think some of the acting that Penn does here is really, really.
Hey, Mike, like you were bringing up the not killing him, but it's funny that the old one killed O'Quinn's character, but
Right.
yet O'Quinn came back for a second for a sequel, and I don't know, was he in the third one? And but he wasn't. So he at least came back for the sequel. But yet this one, they set up a
Interesting.
sequel, don't kill him, and then they don't make one. So it's
Yeah.
just it's very interesting. You're right.
I definitely would have just followed the original path there and just killed him just in case. Because,
too.
I mean, they brought him back in the original, like you said, for a sequel. So you could have done the same thing. He could have faked his death, whatever. He's gotten away all this time anyway. So I would have at least gave us the satisfaction of seeing him die on screen because he kind of deserved it. But some positives here. I think Penn's acting here is great. Like you see, again, I'm a big fan of the show. I think I love that character, Joe Goldberg. You get some of the acting chops from Penn here that you get in that show. So I think a lot of that is really, really solid. His reaction to seeing his dad in the freezer, again, really, really good facial expressions and everything else. So all in all, I think it's a fun movie. I just wish we could have stuck that landing a little bit more.
All right, so for the last set of scenes here, I don't know about you guys, but even back when I was in high school and I had a cell phone, like my cell phone would always go with me. If I go get in the shower, even to this day, if I go get in the shower, my cell phone's going with me in the bathroom. And I don't know if it's paranoia, like I don't have anything to hide. Well, actually, I mean, I live alone. There's no one to hide it from, even if I did. But I just like to have my phone with me. If someone calls, I've answered the phone in the shower before. Maybe that's just me, but I don't like that he just left his phone in his bedroom and then, oh, damn, the only evidence I had, the only picture I had is gone. That's kind of lame. But as far as the ending goes, like you said, Brian, I really don't like that he tried to knock the mom out with a sleeping pill, but damn, I don't know what kind of Ambien that was, but her ass woke up a little bit later. But yeah, if you're gonna do it, you've already predetermined tonight's the night. You motherfucker's gonna die. Like, seems like you would have just killed her, carve her up right there. What do you have to lose at this point? You're gonna kill him. But instead, he just tries to drug her a little bit to buy him some time for what? And then, the whole Michael sneaking into the basement and everything, and they got this great plan. Hey, call me if you see any lights and all this. And then she's searching for a car charger. And by the time she does get a call down to him, he drops the phone. And, then she's running over and she's she's about to yell in the window and everything. I mean, all I can say is Amber Heard really shit the bed here with her backup, with her lookout duties. And then, what a fucking right hook. David just knocked her ass out. And then where did this shit come from that he boarded up the window with? Like, I don't know. That shit was just laying around there. You had a piece of plywood and a heavy-ass rock or whatever it was. And then this is another thing. It's like, okay, Michael, you can Houdini your ass out of that closet and into the pool, but you can't figure out how to get out of the basement to save your girlfriend and your mom without some more. I mean, you gave him way too much time. If you're gonna, oh wait, I got a crowbar, I can break in. Like that was stupid. Then the ending here, they did a lot of good as far as callbacks to the original with the mirror shattering and him getting stabbed with it. Now it's a different character doing the stabbing and a different location on the stepfather that he got stabbed. But it was still a nice little callback there. It doesn't have to be scene for scene identical. So that was nice. That was well done. And then they end up in the attic again, just like in the original. So, again, well done. But, Michael, it should have never came to that. You got a fucking crowbar, man. How did you let him get all the way up that ladder by the time you went over and grabbed your crowbar? Like, you should have popped his ass in the forehead when he's climbing up the ladder, and boom, you bought yourself some more time. But as far as the actual ending here, it's a nice little tussle. They get into a bit of a Donnybrook here. They go flying when Michael tackles him through the side of the house there, and then they go off the roof and all this shit. What? Okay, you wake up a month later out of a coma to find out that, oh, he's still alive. He's out there. We don't know what happened to him. Like, where was the women at during all this shit? Like, I understand you fell through the damn ceiling, but you didn't get knocked out. You got to get your ass up and find some help. Keep an eye on the situation. I don't like that everyone in this family lived. Every one of them, except for Jackie. God rest her soul. That kill was what it was, but she was just, she was collateral damage in this whole ordeal. But Casey Jones is going to be pissed when he finds out you killed April O'Neil. But the core members of this family all live, and then he's just on to the next town, on to his next victim. How did he? In the original, they show the stepfather changing his hair. He was actually wearing a toupee, and he takes it off, and he's thinning on top, and he's got a comb over. In this one, we don't see him changing his appearance. It's just all of a sudden, we don't know. Apparently a month later, this motherfucker's got thick ass sideburns, and his hair looks like he's in a White Snake cover band. So I don't like how they didn't show that really. He should have had a mustache. There should have been something else different about him. That's not enough. That's a very minor nitpick, but ultimately it's just because I'm kind of frustrated with his ending. Like I said, the beginning, this is another movie that we've done in the past couple of weeks where in the beginning we're set up all these expectations. Holy shit. Just like in Amityville Horror, we get this brutal murder scene at the beginning, and then the ending is so anticlimactic because they shot their load too early. So overall, is an okay ending. Nothing special really. Just kind of is what it is, and I'm pleased that it's over. But I don't hate that I watched it.
Oh, I agree with both of you guys. That's one of my biggest issues is the ending. I actually enjoy the ending until they get into the attic. I love Celia Ward and Dylan Walsh's exchange downstairs. The "Who am I here?" I think the "Who am I here?" is a good reveal. Honestly, I like that.
I love that. I love that line.
I agree.
For one, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
When he has that lapse and oh shit, who the fuck am I? Like, I think it's really good. But two, I think it works as a good reveal as well.
Yeah, and I was actually agreeing with. I was going to chime in earlier, but I didn't. I agree with you, Mike, about him. Just at the beginning, just calmly walking through the house, making peanut butter and toast and coffee while all the people are dead. I think Dylan Walsh. I think he knocked it out of the park being this weird, creepy stepdad. Honestly,
he does a great job. He's a great. He does a great job with the character.
But yeah, I'm 100% with you guys. The ending falls very flat to me once they get into the attic. I'm with you. I wish they would just kill the stepfather in this. I'm fine with the mom living and Michael living, but I wish they would have killed the stepfather like they did in the original. I mean, he deserved it. I mean, he could have injured one of them or something going down, but yeah, I agree. But let's move on to our social media comments and questions. If y'all don't have any more final thoughts, we don't have many comments and questions tonight because I feel like a lot of people haven't seen this movie. That's basically all the comments and questions we got.
I hope they go see it. I will say before we start, it's worth a watch, 100%.
Oh yeah,
I think so, especially with the cast. Like, I think I would definitely watch the original just for reference material, and then watch this one. And I think you'll be satisfied that you did.
The original to me has a lot of good in it. Like, it legitimately has a lot. O'Quinn, I think, kills it. I think him and Dylan Walsh are very much so the perfect people to play. They did great in their roles.
Absolutely. And for all of our U.S. listeners, because I commented to an Instagram follower, she's in Australia and says they don't have the options that we do here. The Stepfather, the original, is streaming free on several streaming platforms, so definitely check that out. I think it's on Tubi, Peacock, several. The Stepfather remake was on Netflix just a few months ago, but it's not on there anymore. Right. But Instagram Fairy Chick commented, I haven't ever seen this or the original, so she says she's looking forward to hearing our thoughts. We appreciate that. I like the fact that so many people look forward to listen to us talk for a couple hours.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite kind of comments, Nico. It's just because when we pick a movie that like this, where it's not that it's not well known, because a lot of people know there's a Stepfather remake, but I feel like maybe no one went out of their way to see it because the original one isn't super popular, kind of a cult classic in a way.
Yeah.
And so I feel like us reviewing it is a good way to get people to watch a movie. And if that's the case, I'm always down for that, because the more you watch horror movies, guess what? the more horror movies get made.
And my favorite part of doing this show is watching movies I haven't seen
Yeah,
before.
100%.
So if we can drive other people to watch movies that they haven't seen before
For
and
sure.
just expand that horror realm outside of just, the big three, for example. It's
All right, The Lighthouse soon come.
I think we've done
Right.
something. I think it's great. Hey, I'm giving The Lighthouse a chance, man. Hey, we'll see. We'll see. I'm open minded.
Let's do a rewatch of Midsommar, and we got to have a different. No, okay. I was going to say we could do it from a different character's perspective this time.
I'm sick of it.
Hey, I mean, I just want all the people at that new movie smile. I would pay attention. People want to hear our thoughts. If you want to give us some early access to it, I'll do an early review.
Yeah,
on it.
and
That movie
also
looked awesome.
There you go.
To date this show, I'm hoping to catch the Black Phone in the next few days. I'm real, I know I'm kind of dating the episode, but I'm really excited to kind of get in the theater and see that one.
Yep, same, Mike. Instant reaction soon come.
Yep.
But
We'll do it, brother.
Let's jump over to Twitter real quick. We just got very few comments. Randy Smith commented, not the worst remake, but not close to the original. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, brother. Kevin Scanlon, big fan of the show, awesome guy. This is 2 remakes in a row I have not seen yet. I guess I have to rectify that here soon. I would say that. Yeah, I would definitely check it out. And Amityville Horror. I like both of those movies. I think they're both fun. And the last comment is from Bogey Lowenstein is his Twitter name. He says he hasn't seen it, but the original is amazing. A lot of people have that same line of thinking. But that's the last of social media comments and questions. We can jump over to fun facts now.
The only fun fact I have is that Braden Lemasters, who played Penn Badgley's younger brother in this movie, Sean, he actually played Penn's younger self in the movie Easy A from 2010. So it's kind of cool. They've been in 2 movies together where they're either relatives or the same person. So he must really look like Penn Badgley when he was younger.
I don't have any.
All right, I'll go. I only have 2 of them, Mike, for you to do the budget. Fun fact, this is based on a true story, or based loosely on some true stories. The Stepfather 1987 was loosely based on John List, a New Jersey accountant who murdered his family in November 1971 and disappeared. He was found nearly 18 years later living under an alias when his neighbor recognized him on America's Most Wanted, America Fights Back, 1988, and reported it to the police. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And the last one I have is, and this fun fact got very few thumbs up on IMDb, but it's David Morse was considered for the role of David Harris. And if you don't recognize the name David Morse, we actually reviewed a movie with David Morse in it. Legendary blood donor Joe Swinford picked it. It was Disturbia, and David Morse was the creepy neighbor. Right. Listen, I'm not saying I do not want Dylan Walsh replaced. I think he killed it, but I think David Morse could have been a good creepy stepfather as well.
Yeah, so really quick, the original Stepfather only grossed about $2.5 million when you account for inflation or, around there. So not the highest grossing film of all time. The budget was something around a little under $1 million. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. So it's funny to kind of see the remake. The budget was $20 million and it only grossed around $30 million. It really didn't. It made its money back, but if you include marketing and everything, it probably really didn't.
Right. Which
is kind of shocking to me. I kind of feel like around this time, and we're going to do another one in 2 weeks, and even next week, really, when we get to the whole remake craze. But a lot of cookie cutter horror films around this time, where you could just kind of throw it in a theater and think it's going to make a lot of money. That was, there was a new Saw every year, and there was a new remake every 5 months.
Yeah.
And this kind of fell in line with that. I thought it would have made a lot more money, so that was interesting to see.
All righty, let's jump in. Well, like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of a cult classic, the original. So maybe there just wasn't the fan base for this one. I don't know. I think they probably just tried to grab Dylan Walsh's name and try to ride with it. But let's jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, in the rating. Does anybody in particular want to go first tonight?
I'll go first to knock it out. I'll say this. I don't have a favorite kill because I don't see any of them, man. So I had a really hard time picking a favorite, and my least favorite is all of them because I wanted to see them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I hate copping out like that because, but, we talked about it in our mailbag episode. A big thing for me with most horror films is the kills. And if your movie doesn't have kills, that's totally different. Like, that's that's not a problem. Like when I go to The Conjuring, I'm not there to see the kills. I'm there to see something else. But when it comes to a movie where you have kills, I want to see them done well and executed creatively. And we don't get that in this film, which is a little bit unfortunate. But look, I kind of gave my thoughts, but I will say that I think the acting in this movie shines even through some of the stuff that I don't like. Like I really do think this is a good cast, from Penn to Amber Heard to goddamn, I'm drawing a blank on David's name, his real life name, not the character. Sorry,
Dylan Walsh.
Dylan Walsh. So I mean, again, great cast. I think it's awesome, and I think they shine through. I'm not going to say the cinematography is great. I know that's where people think I'm going to go, but I do like the tone of the film. I think it's dark and creepy when it needs to be dark and creepy, and really light and light when it needs to be. And I think that contrast works really, really well. I love the concept. I just wish they had stuck the landing. So all in all, I gave this movie a flat 7.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go for my general thoughts. I mean, the movie is what it is. It's not a terrible movie. I've definitely seen worse movies. We've reviewed worse movies. We've reviewed movies that I enjoyed a lot less. So it's not even quality of movie. Enjoyment level was higher on this one than it is on a lot of movies we've done. But overall, I think it was pretty unspectacular. It's fine. It's one of those movies that we've talked about where if you're trying to intro someone into horror, this is a fine movie because it's not going to annoy me to the point to where I'm like, God, why am I watching this again? So I'd sit through this with a girl if I'm trying to introduce her to horror movies and ease her into it. It does a good enough job of paying homage to the original while putting a new spin on things, but not enough of a new spin, like I said, to warrant a remake, I don't think. The cast is a lot better. The acting is a lot better across the board. It just kind of is what it is. Don't love it, don't hate it. It's pretty okay. As far as the kills go, my favorite kill, I guess, was Jay. I struggled with the kills on this movie. My favorite kill was Jay because it was at least tense with the looming threat of Michael discovering everything if he came downstairs. But at the same time, it was frustrating because Michael didn't do those things. But, the smash to the base to the head and then suffocating him and everything. Most of these kills were off-screen or slightly off-screen or not gory because it's PG-13. So not a whole lot to choose from here. So I went with Jay just, I guess, by default. Least favorite kill would just, I guess... See, I kind of want to say the family in the beginning because it was all off screen, but hell, that's the only blood we got in the movie. So if you don't want to do that one, then, or if I didn't want to do that one, then yeah, I would say Jackie because like you said, Brian, after I thought about it, that's April O'Neil, and Casey Jones ain't going to take too kindly to that. She could have just went down to work at the TGRI factory again, uncovering some moves if she wanted to be threatened with death. So fuck that shit. But as far as my rating goes, I went with a 5.25, 5.25.
Okay, you want me to go, Nico, so you can go last?
No,
Your movie?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Favorite kill, I chose Jay, and I wrote all the kills are pretty tame, but this is the best one to me. You get the vase to the head, and he's bound and gagged and smothered. And then I wrote getting smothered is actually a real fear of mine. Like I hate not being able to breathe. Like
I just
people
have to say, you saying bound, gagged, and smothered almost made me feel like I was ordering hash browns at Waffle
Yes, sir.
Waffle House, baby.
Scattered and covered with ham. Anyway, sorry.
But for real though, like whenever back in the day we got like getting put in a chokehold or something, and I can't breathe. Like it freaks me out. I hate that feeling. My least favorite kill, I agree with you, Brian. I know you're going to say it. Jackie drowned. It's just a lame kill, and David got his ass over there way too quick.
Yeah.
Rating. So I know for an absolute fact, I like this movie way more than I should, and more than most other horror fans. Because just to touch on what Scream 5 touched on, Toxic Fan. If you go through the IMDb ratings, these people are mean to this movie. They say it sucked and it's terrible. And
definitely don't think that. I gave it a freaking 7.
And what do they know? But I just wrote, it's got a weird nostalgia to me, and I watch it at least once a year. I really like the cast, and the movie is just fun to me. I grew up with a stepdad, so maybe that's why this movie just resonates with me more. And I touched on, Joe Goldberg. I find it ironic with Penn being creepy Joe Goldberg, and him dealing with the creepy stepdad. My qualms with the movie are the ending with the Saw scene, and it just kind of ended abruptly. And I don't like the fact that the stepdad survived. The kills definitely could have been more graphic. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm just a big fan of this one, and I know like you two both especially said is just this movie. Just I enjoy and it entertains me. And I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I said sue me if you could disagree.
Well, out of the neutered kills, my favorite kill is the cat lady, actually, and my least favorite kill, obviously, I went with Jackie. As far as a summary goes, overall, I think it's better than the original.
Me
I
too.
think I think McCormick and Cordone learned a little bit from their work on that Prom Night remake the year before, which we're doing anyway here coming up in a week or two. But as far as the movie, and this is basically the same thing that Dustin said last week about Amityville Horror remake, but I felt the same way about this one. And the original, actually, whenever I watched them both this week. I think the opening scene is so strong, and the rest of the movie just never really catches up to that.
Yep,
Um,
100%.
I would give the original probably a 5 if I'm rating it, and hopefully maybe we will one day. And I'm going to say that this one was a 6.5 for me right up until the last third of the film, and then it just kind of fell off the cliff, and I knocked it down to about a 5.75.
Fair. That's fair.
And our composite for this movie is a 6.5. And I will go quickly over to IMDb and see what theirs is, which I know is lower because IMDb. I'm pulling the Brian tonight with Cloverfield.
The fuck do they know, huh?
Actually, we're the complete opposite. IMDb was on his side. IMDb is not on my side. And just to prove our point a little bit, Mike, there's only 34,716 ratings on this, and
Yeah,
it's
which
got
is
a
nothing.
5.5.
Right.
Okay, so we're not too terribly far off.
Well, hey, what can you do? I'm just happy I got a decent rating out of you guys. I was scared that this one was going to get shit on, but hey, I'll take it. I'm happy, honestly. Brother Mike's pick is going to get shit on next week, but it's not like it's not like he likes it or anything.
We saved all of our shitting for next week, I believe.
Next week is going to be what Mike likes to call a good discussion episode.
I believe it will be. I believe that it will be. I stand by that, and I want to apologize ahead of time for making Brian watch this movie. I am really sorry, but I do think, like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which you've admitted is a good episode, and you didn't hate it as much as you thought you did. You don't like it, and I agree, it's bad. But we didn't hate it as much as we thought. I don't think that'll be the case this time, though. I hate this movie just as much as I always have, but I am. That's kind of why I'm excited to talk about it. So obviously, you've seen, if you follow us on social media, you've seen Brian's wonderful graphic work, and I went ahead. I did it. I can't believe I did it because I went back and forth about doing it, but I picked 2010's A Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
I'm looking forward to reviewing it, honestly. I think it's going to be a good discussion. I agree. I think it's going to be a good discussion because it takes us back to the logo. And
Going back to the logo, kind of. I like Jackie Earle Haley. There will be no slander of himself on this show.
I agree with that.
It is not his fault. Okay,
I agree with that. I do. I agree.
Yeah, I don't. It's not his fault, but the makeup on him looks fucking terrible. But we'll touch on that next week. Let's shout out our wonderful blood donors. Really appreciate y'all.
Yes.
Camper level reoccurring are Clayton J, Nina, Michelle Mirza, Andrew Ferguson, Carrie Adams, the Horror Movie Crew podcast, Alex Seligson, Eric Doolittle, and Sean Irwin. Our camp counselor reoccurring are Hunter Nelson, Dennis Kennedy, Edwin Hernandez Gunn, Joe Swinford, Jennifer Davis from the Too Close to Home podcast, Karen, Heather Smith, and Kylie Denise, all the way from Australia. Appreciate you. And we have 2 new legendary blood donors we have film reviews to do for. Big fan of the show, Mr. Kevin Scanlon, and another new legendary blood donor, Michael Azelson. Just want to say thank you all very much for your support. We really appreciate it. Can't stress it enough. Times are very tough. Any financial contributions we get are greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps us make a decent sounding podcast, and we truly appreciate our fans. Any final thoughts?
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank my co-host again. This was a fun review. This is one of those movies I just had on my list for a long time. I was like, I'm just looking forward to reviewing it, and that's my favorite thing about this show. Like Brian mentioned earlier, is not only watching new movies, but just reviewing movies that I enjoy and like watching and like talking about. And
I've got asked recently why I don't pick movies I like as much as I probably should. Part of the reason is because you guys end up picking those anyway, so like that's fine. And honestly, if I pick the movies I like, we'd just be sitting here talking Michael Myers all day and shit. So that's not true. I like other movies, but we've done the whole Scream franchise, and so I don't really see the point in drugging that up again. And the stuff. The stuff I enjoy, the Saw franchise, you got to space those out. You got to space some of this stuff out. So sometimes I just want to pick either a controversial film, which is why at some point we're going to do Cannibal Holocaust. We're going to do something like that. I know. I promise I won't make you guys sit through Serbian film. I'll never pick that. We won't ever do that movie on this show. No. So don't ask. Don't ask. We're not doing that movie. But I like picking films. I know I've said this before. I either like picking a big film that we just haven't covered, like Poltergeist, which I'm not a fan of, but we haven't covered it. And I think at some point we're going to have to do that since we're a horror film podcast. That's kind of how that works. Or B, I like picking movies that I think are kind of bad, but are worth discussing. And I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street remake is really one of those to me where I think generally the consensus is Platinum Dunes for the first time got it really wrong.
Yes.
And it was really bad.
Oh yeah. But Mike, like you talked about picking bad movies, is one of Brian's favorite things to do is Script Doctor, and he gets to touch on a lot of things during our reviews, how he could make things better, and a lot of our fans like that. I mean, one of our most favorite blogs that we've written or in our episodes is the pitching a sequel, and I think everybody likes Brian's Scream idea.
It's fantastic.
So I mean,
it's great.
So I mean, even in bad movies, there's opportunity for good discussion and good things that come from it. But anywho, just want to thank all our fans and listeners one more time. Appreciate y'all listening. And before we go, if you listen on Spotify or if you have a Spotify, go give us a rating on there as well as an Apple Podcast. I had no idea, but Spotify is now like the biggest platform for people to listen to podcasts on. That if those ratings really, really help us meet and reach new people, and it costs you absolutely nothing. It helps out a lot. So we'd really appreciate that. Y'all have a good one. Just want to remind everybody,